the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Another 2.4 million Americans filed for unemployment insurance this past week. That takes that number up to right around 38.6, somewhere in the 38, 40 million range. And once you get to that level, what's the point anything matter? The numbers are just completely out of control. And here's the thing. You've got Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, who has made it very clear that the next stimulus plan, if there is going to be one, and I think there might be, it can be no more than $1 trillion, according to Moscow Mitch, and no more $600 for the additional unemployment for folks. Because I'm really shocked at how this one little thing has just grabbed control of the Republican Party. The fact that working people got a little bit of something, a little bit. We're not talking about a huge bite of the apple. We're talking about a little nibble. While corporate America, we gave a $500 billion slush fund to. $600 a week to the worker that is going on unemployment. Who, again, and I talk about this every time this pops up. It's amazing how little our elected leaders understand about the unemployment system, because chances are they've never had to go through the process of losing their job and having to file for it. Because look, it's the Millionaires Club. They've always got a big walleted, deep-pocketed donor out there that's willing to help them get through that tough time doing that lobby job. So they're saying no additional $600, and that ends at the end of July. And remember, the point of it was Anton Scalia's kid, Eugene, who is our labor secretary, said that, it would be too much work to go through and make people whole. Because, look, even conservatives are saying, look, if you're making people lose their jobs and you're making them stay home and not work, you should pay them 100% of their wages. They should get compensated because, look, people have bills. So Scalia said, instead of trying to figure it out, he understands how badly our unemployment system's broken. He said, just throw $600 out there. It'll all come out in the wash. Because he understands that, unemployment only replaces about 40% in a good state of your lost income. In some of the crummier states, maybe 20, 25. So that additional $600 was to make up that massive gap between what unemployment is paying and what you actually lost. And it was a smart policy. If only they could have rolled it out much faster. If only they could have done what I think everybody from the beginning said they should have done, which was to have a system set up where people just stayed on the payroll. Employers said, go home, we'll pay you, we'll keep you on the checks will keep coming, your insurance will be fine, all of that will be fine. We'll put a system in place to do that. Didn't do it. So now we're in this weird world where at the end of July, people who have lost their jobs and probably might not go back, of the 40 million, we don't know how many are going to be permanent, but they're going to be SOL on the other side of the end of July. And this is another one of those moments where you go, which side are you on? Who are you fighting for? Because they're talking about tax breaks for corporations. They're talking about incentives for corporate America. They're talking about all kinds of stuff to enrich the corporate interests, the shareholder class. But you and I, not so much. Oh, and let's not forget immunity for employers when they do bring workers back and don't provide safe workplaces. Yeah, we're going to give them an immunity shield so that, because, hey, they need it. It's just crazy. And this is one of those moments where you just go, this is the time for working people to stand up, speak out, and be vocal, be militant. Like we talked last night with Harvey K. It's time to get radical. It's time to get radical for a generation. It's time for working people to strike. It's time for people to get in the streets. It's time to re-envision our economy. It's time for us to put reward back into work and dignity back into work. And our tweet of the day comes from Senator Bernie Sanders, who tweeted out, in Denmark, McDonald's workers get $22 an hour, 6 weeks of paid vacation, 1 year of paid family leave, and pensions. In America, McDonald's workers make $9 an hour, get no benefits, and have to go on strike to get hand sanitizer during a pandemic. Is that right? And the thing is, we saw yesterday, and this is, again, I'm thrilled to see that finally we're taking to the picket lines and people are going on strike. Yesterday, McDonald's workers in 20 cities across the U.S. Walked off the job demanding safer working conditions. You know, the hand sanitizer, you know, the masks, the social distancing, cleaning, you know, those kind of things. And while they continue to fight for 15 in a union, they continue to fight for better wages, hours, it's about conditions right now. Safety is front and center. And you had this shareholders meeting where the wealthy go to rub elbows and figure out how much more they're going to take. It wasn't surprising that the worker who tried to speak was reportedly just shut down. So can't even, when you're part of the big club, you can't even speak then. Now understand, this is one of those weird moments because shareholders care about one thing and one thing only. They don't care about some worker, who's got to worry about taking a virus home to their families. They care about maximizing wealth. That's it. The CEO cares about maximizing shareholder wealth. That is it. And while it's reported that McDonald's made about $6 billion last year in profit, they handed out nearly $1 billion to shareholders in dividends during a global pandemic. The wealthy shareholders. But surprisingly, they don't have enough money to, offer hazard pay, paid sick leave, masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, deep cleaning. Can't afford that. But we got money to hand out to the investor class. We can get those dividends out. Now, in defense of McDonald's, and I have to defend them here. They did spring for really cute looking pins that say essential worker. So, you still get the little nameplate on your shirt that has your name and now essential worker. You don't even have to work your way up to like assistant to the assistant to the assistant, anything. You're now essential worker. It doesn't come with any more money or better benefits or any security or any of that, but it's cute and it's a nice little touch. I think it's a nice touch, don't you? And the thing is what we've learned. And we've learned, through this whole crisis, who the essential workers are. Those are disproportionately women with children, and people of color. We've figured this out. They are the vulnerable. They are the vulnerable. They are the 47% that Mitt Romney and the GOP scoffed at back in 2012 because they didn't earn enough to pay federal income tax. They're the 47% that the ACLU says shows up to work sick because they don't have paid sick days and they can't afford to miss a day's work. It's those folks. They're the ones who don't have health insurance. They're the ones who can't see a doctor when they get sick. They're the ones who go without paid sick leave and then have to show up to the crummy job in unsafe conditions because they can't afford to miss a day's pay or to take care of a sick child. They're the ones we're not protecting. And now you see this story with the Wall Street Journal saying is that McDonald's is evidently going to leave them even more vulnerable as they seek to reopen the dining rooms. As if it isn't bad enough already, let's make it worse. And this is one of those moments where I keep coming back to, when do we say enough? And good on these workers for taking to the streets and highlighting the fact that these conditions are what they are. If you have a situation where you're in a situation where it is unsafe, you got to tell somebody. But the sad reality is, and we talked about this the other day, OSHA has answered only 7% of the COVID-related claims. Only 7%. And in none of those cases did they issue any citations. So we can't even fall back on what we were led to believe was going to be our savior. And this is the scary time for me and why I'm not a Trump supporter. Because all we hear from the Trump people is, in order to get the economy going, we need to deregulate. We need to make OSHA weaker. We need to make the EPA weaker. We need to make all of those protections that we think we have that aren't protecting us. We need to make those weaker. And I know, they're job-killing regulations, Rick. Don't you know? Well, I'll tell you, the people-killing lack of regulations is what I'm concerned about. And the people-killing lack of a cop on the beat to actually enforce what little labor law we have is even more concerning. And we talked about this yesterday. This is one of those things that, really just drives me insane. Because when the PR time was needed, when companies were stepping up and they were saying, during this tough time, we really care about our essential frontline heroes. We're going to give them hero pay or essential worker compensation. We're gonna suck it up and we're gonna give them a $2 or a $3 raise. How do you like that? So we're gonna take you from 7 1/4 up to 9 1/4 or 10 1/4. Yay! And all you have to do is put your life on the line and your family's life on the line. That's all you have to do. And now what we're seeing is they're pulling this back. And Janice sent us an email yesterday asking the question, how can they get away with this? And the answer is because there's nothing to stop them. Unless you join and form a union, unless you have a contract. And it's, like when the tax cuts happened. If you remember all the PR spin that came out of that, there are a couple of companies that handed out bonuses, one-time bonuses, not raises, mind you, but one-time bonuses that everyone, oh, look how wonderful they are. And they got tons of good PR and tons of slaps on the back. And, oh, look at our good corporate citizens and how wonderful they are. And we did the same thing now. Such and such a grocery store gave extra $2. Oh, they really care. And now they're clawing it back. Why? Because they can. And this is where I've been saying for a very long time, we need to be pushing for an increase in the minimum wage, and now is the time to do it. If you look at Washington State, and Washington State's always been the example for me, because if you remember back in 2013, they were pushing hard for $15 an hour. And in fact, in the town of SeaTac, Washington, they actually won the first Fight for 15 campaign and got the minimum wage raised to $15 an hour in 2013. The following year in Seattle, they got it up to $15 an hour. Today, that minimum wage in SeaTac, that minimum wage there is $16.34 an hour. In Seattle, it's $16.39 an hour because they kept adjusting it for inflation and they kept raising it to meet what it would cost to live. Washington State has the highest minimum wage in the country at $13.50 an hour. That is where we should be moving. None of this, hey, out of the goodness of our hearts, please give us hero pay or essential worker pay. No, demand higher wages. Fight for them. Put them into law. Put them into contracts. And don't let them walk back from it. And this is one of those times where the reality is we've got to fight for, yes, laws and politicians who are going to fight for us, but you're going to have to take to the streets. And, in this hour, we're going to talk a little bit about the workers who have done that, the struggles that they're facing on the job, the things that they're seeing and that they're having to deal with. Because look, how many people 3 months ago, 4 months ago, thought of a fast food worker as essential? Now we've given them cute little pins. They've got pins that say they're essential and wonderful, and we're so thankful for them. The grocery store checkout person who now is a frontline hero, and we give them, so much words. Just put them up on the pedestal. We throw a couple of pennies at them, but they're no better off than they were before. In fact, they're worse off. They're less safe. If you really want those words to mean something, that frontline hero or that essential worker, if you want that to mean something, that should come with being able to support their family. That should come for being able to, if they're sick, stay the hell home and not infect everyone else. And if their kids are sick, be able to stay home with them. It seems like common sense. And at the minimum, they should be able to have health insurance. So if they do get sick, they get to go to a doctor. So keep your words, keep your praise, keep your pennies. It's time to demand something real, something tangible, something Well, something like my grandparents' generation fought for. The most prosperous working class in the history of civilization they built. How? Not by asking nicely, but by walking the picket line and demanding. That simple. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk with a McDonald's worker about her experience, what she's seeing, and why she took to the picket line. Quick break, right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
There's nothing more American than workers standing up, and the union gives a voice to win. On The Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1984. That was the day Toledo auto workers at AP Parts Plant battled police in an attempt to save their union. The battle unfolded on the 50th anniversary of the historic Toledo Auto Light Strike. 400 members of UAW Local 14 had been on strike against the parts plant since May 2nd. The company imposed a final offer that stripped workers of their seniority rights, ended 30 and out pensions, and cut wages by 40%. They then laid off 175 workers and targeted the rest with a campaign of harassment and discipline. Workers walked off the job when the NLRB dismissed the union's unfair labor practice charges. Local newspapers printed the names and addresses of striking workers in a blatant attempt to blacklist them from area employers. Strikers had had it with AP's union-busting tactics, which included paying the hated private goon squad, Knuckleus Security, $45,000 a week to escort scabs into the plant. The final straw came with an injunction restricting the number of pickets. In an act of solidarity, area unions came together for a show of union strength. Thousands of UAW people from area auto plants joined with striking OCAW refinery workers at the main gate to challenge the new injunction. Police in full riot gear charged the crowd with tear gas, clubs, and pellet guns, beating and arresting dozens of strikers. A pitched battle ensued between workers and police that lasted up to 18 hours until the company was finally forced to eject scabs from the plant. While workers were jubilant, the strike served as a warning about the future of small parts plants. The strike dragged on for months, ending in deep concessions and outsourcing. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I look at Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown, who the other day asked the absolute right question. You know, how much of a rise in GDP, how much of a rise in the Dow is worth the lives of workers? How many workers is it going to take to pump those up? And look, this is my fear in all of this, as they force people back into the workplace without safety in mind, without the ability for workers to keep themselves safe, and also giving employers an immunity shield, you kind of got to wonder if we're going to take it. And I'll tell you, I'm really encouraged to see workers across the country taking to the picket line and standing up and speaking out. That's why I've asked Sade Andrews to come talk with us. She's a Florida McDonald's crew member. Sade, thanks for taking time for us.
Hi, how you doing?
I am good. So I understand you're one of those people who took to the picket line and went on strike yesterday.
Yes, on Wednesday.
And what was it that made you, what made you do that?
I believe in standing for what's right.
And by that, you mean the conditions under which you work, I get what's right, but why do you think it's not right?
I think it's not right because you're putting people's life in jeopardy, and you're not also protecting the workers. Like at our store in Tampa, like my store, the workers, like, we don't feel protected. And the customers, like the lobby area is still open in our McDonald's. So the restroom too is open to the public. And we don't really have shields like that. And when we run out of masks and gloves, they basically expect us to provide our own. So we basically have to just go with it. And the customers, they don't have to wear a mask and gloves if they don't want to. So we can't really tell them what to do. And sometimes they ask us ourselves, they'll be like, why you guys don't have masks and gloves? And recently in our store, we had a maintenance person. They was there, but I guess they fired them. So we basically, like, if we don't have nothing to clean with, like, clean the bleach down with the spray the store, because we be there till like 2 o'clock sometimes cleaning. We basically just can't really do nothing about it. You just got to go by what they say.
So you don't do anything during the shift that you're there. It's just people coming and going to the bathroom, in and out, not wearing masks, not practicing social distancing, and you're not getting the things that you need to protect yourself, and they're not cleaning. This sounds like a nightmare.
Yes, it is. That's why I'm demanding, like, we get our cleaning supplies and our masks and gloves, because we need that. And also shields in the drive-thru too.
So no shields whatsoever. And what happened? What response are you getting from management there? I mean, because I can't imagine that they're thrilled with it either, because it's kind of a condition that the frontline managers have to deal with as well.
Yes. So like the managers, they kind of like brush it off, kind of. They'll be like, "Oh, it's okay. We'll get it done or whatever," but they don't really do much about it. Like, they kind of like secretive with stuff, so they're not gonna really tell us what's really going on. They're just gonna brush it off, kind of.
It's just crazy. So let me go back to this mask thing, because you're saying that they're not even providing you with the basic minimum protective needs that you have of just a simple mask.
Yes, like we'll have it and then we'll run out. So you basically got to bring your own. So that's basically how it goes.
And it's just crazy. And of course, as you said, they're not mandating that the customers that you have to interact with, that they have to wear a mask. Because, as we've been saying on this program, the person wearing the mask isn't protecting themselves from getting it. They're protecting everybody else from them giving it to them. So by wearing a mask, you're saying, I want you to be safe. And if someone else that you're in front of it has a mask on, they're telling you, hey, I want you to be safe too. So this is how this game works. So to have an employer who says, well, you wear one if you can, but the people who come in that you're going to have to service, they don't have to. That basically is telling me that your employer doesn't give a rat's behind about you or any of your coworkers.
Yes. I mean, the customers, sometimes some of the people, some of them apply with the rules. They'll like social distance, and some just be like, nah, not even gonna listen to them.
So what's the demand now? I mean, you guys went on strike, obviously, to draw attention during the shareholders meeting. What are the demands?
The demand is we need our cleaning supplies, our masks and gloves, our shields, and also we need double the pay for risking our life, because this is a very, very big risk. Because I'm a college student and I help my mom pay bills. So if I get sick, we basically don't get paid to, like, pay leave day. We don't get paid. So basically, I'm in, like, trouble, kind of.
No, I mean, you're
stuck in a hole.
Right. It sounds like you're in an extremely vulnerable position, because I got to assume they're not providing any type of health insurance, right?
No, they're not.
So if you get sick on the job, and this is where my mindset has been from the beginning, that we need to treat this like a workers' compensation issue. If you get sick on the job, that employer is responsible for you getting sick, responsible for your healthcare costs, responsible for your recovery. And if something worse happens, they're responsible for that as well. This is ridiculous that they're going to put someone like you in a position that you have no ability to defend yourself, that you absolutely need the job because you people need to work, and you have no ability to get the care that you need when and if you get sick on the job. It's literally insane to me.
Yes, and sometimes like we'll see people come, like they'll be gone for like a few days, but we won't really know like if because they'll come in with a paper, we don't know if they're sick or not, and we don't want to be like rude and ask them. So like we kind of just got to go with the flow basically. Yeah, because the manager's not gonna really tell us nothing.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Sade. I mean, I'm of the mindset if I'm in the kind of close quarters that you guys are in, because there's no way, I've been to a couple of McDonald's over the years, there's no way you're going to keep the entire staff 6 feet apart. There's no way you're going to be able to social distance in that way, the way it's set up. Now, I think they should have to retool and make things a little bit different so that you can protect yourself, but they're not providing masks. What the hell makes me think they're going to actually abide by any social distancing?
Yes.
So, in your workplace, do the other crew members, do the other people work there, do they feel kind of the same way that you do? Or are they, as I've met in the past, some folks who are a little more afraid because they're a little more desperate? What are you experiencing?
Yes, like certain ones I'm close with, they're very worried about it because they get sick easily. Like me, I don't really get sick. Like my immune system really good, but like certain ones, they have a bad immune system, so like they can get sick easy, like in a drop of a dime.
Right.
So, and then some of them, they kind of brush it off. They're not really as worried about it. So, yeah.
But you're lucky you've got a good immune system. But here's the problem with having a really good immune system. We don't have any immunity to this. That's why this is so important. And there are stories of younger people contracting this and ending up having fatal outcomes. And I want that for no one. And this is one of those moments, Sade, that I want people to understand that we can do all of these things in a safe way. It's just going to take some time, some effort, some input from employees, and some employers who are actually going to care about their employees. And I know that's a lot to ask, but I think if they're not going to do it out of the goodness of their soul and the benevolency of their heart, that they have to be forced to do it.
Right.
And that's what you guys were doing, have been doing. What's the plan going forward now? Because obviously one day isn't going to be enough. What are you planning on doing next?
Yes, we plan on still fighting till we get what we need. So like we'll always, on Wednesdays, we'll just keep leaving out of work to go on strike and whatever else we have to do.
And what kind of response are you getting from customers? Because, I find that, it's kind of a mixed bag, but I've found some over the years that, the public is your greatest support. What kind of public support are you getting?
The public, the customers, they're actually worried about us too, because they ask about us. They're like, how you doing today? Are you good? You got your mask and gloves? They're real supportive.
No, I mean, because, it's kind of like a little community almost, I guess. And
yes.
And
sometimes they'll ask to speak to the managers too sometimes.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and if you have the opportunity to talk to the boss, to the guy who owns the place, because it's not McDonald's, it's not the big corporation. The big corporation doesn't care. They've shown that time and time again. What's the pitch? What's the words that you would want them to hear?
I would want them to think about us as because we're their family too. So if you want your family to get sick, then you should be able to think about us too in the same sense, basically, because this is very big, and this epidemic. Ooh.
No, it's huge. But here's the thing that gets me, and this is where where you're talking about this as being a community and everyone being a family and being together and assuming that the folks at the very top care about everyone else the same way we care about each other. That unfortunately is not the case. They care about one thing, and that's the bottom line and profit. And until we change that model, until we stick together and demand that they treat people better and share the wealth that your labor creates, I don't know that anything is going to change. And that's why I'm such a big supporter of unions and the Fight for 15 campaign. I believe Fight for 15 and a union is the battle cry and should be pushed forward.
Yes.
So last question I've got for you, in looking at this, and look, you're obviously a college student. I'm sure you have plans of moving on to do wonderful, terrific things as you get older. Not that what you're not doing now isn't important, but I'm sure you've got hopes and dreams. What do you tell to the person left behind, the person who's coming behind you, about your struggles and what you'd want them to do?
Like working at McDonald's?
Right.
I would basically say, you basically just have to keep your spirit up, be strong, because sometimes things aren't going to always go the way you want it to, and just know that there's other things ahead of you and there's better days coming. You just have to have faith, and do what you feel is right. Put your foot down if you have to too. Stand
up, speak out, and as I tell folks like you who I know are going to go on to bigger and better things, fight the fight, leave something good behind for the next person like you who comes behind you, so that they don't have to suffer the same kind of things that you've had to go through. Sade, I appreciate the time, the thoughts. Stay safe.
Thank you.
And keep up the fight.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Thanks so much, Sade Andrews. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. What are the conditions like where you work? Did you hear anything in that interview that made you go, hey, maybe we should start thinking about this? I'd love to hear it. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break right back after this. Stick around.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1946. That was the day that Democratic President Harry S. Truman ordered the government seizure of the nation's bituminous coal mines. 800,000 United Mine Workers of America, led by John L. Lewis, had gone out on strike. A wave of strikes washed over the United States after World War II. As part of the war effort, most unions had agreed not to conduct work actions during the war. But as industry profits soared due to wartime government contracts, workers saw little improvements in their wages or working conditions. Pent-up worker frustration boiled over after the war. Historian Jeremy Breacher had noted that the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics called the first half of 1946, quote, the most concentrated period of labor management strife in the country's history. The miners were part of that strife. They wanted improved wages, better health care benefits, and safety on the job. The strike had a ripple effect felt far beyond the coal fields. In early May, the Chicago Tribune warned, quote, the nation's worst coal strike tonight slowed the wheels of American industry toward a predictable full stoppage. Coal turned the wheels of industry, and the strike had drastically slowed mining. The government seized the mines and ordered the miners back to work. But still, the coal companies refused to meet the coal miners' demands. Unsatisfied with the resolution of the strike, the miners walked out again in November. The government fined the union $3.5 million, which it later reduced. President Truman called the work actions a rebellion against the government. But the determination of the miners forced the owners to agree to most of their demands. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I've been saying, the reality is I want to see work rewarded. I want to see dignity on the job, but more importantly, I want to see safety. You should not have to go to work and toil under conditions that are going to cost you your life. And you look at the fact that some 90,000 people die every year from occupational exposures that aren't counted. And this is another one of those moments where, again, we're allowing employers to get off the hook, and you're going to have Congress very soon move forward on an immunity bill to shield employers from any employees who get sick on the job because they didn't bother to put up safety shields or provide protective equipment or do any of the cleaning that we know needs to be done. And this is, before they kick the doors open, because Donald Trump's already said there will be no other closures. Whatever happens, we're going forward, we're going through it, which means if you get massive spikes and you get thousands of people getting sick, what's that going to mean for those frontline workers? I mean, we've already gone through the hero thing and the essential worker thing. And I forgot to ask Sade if she got one of those essential worker pins that are so sought after. But the thing is, we absolutely, positively have to stand up in this moment. That's why I've asked Rita Blaylock to come talk with us. She's a North Carolina McDonald's cook. She as well participated in the day of strike. Rita, thanks for taking time for us.
Hello, I'm Rita Blaylock.
I appreciate.
And I work at McDonald's. Yeah.
I appreciate you taking some time for us, Rita. So tell me, why'd you get involved in this? Why take to the streets? What was it?
Actually, I've been doing this for over 7 years for fighting for my rights, for everything, for the 15 and the union. And Actually, when this epidemic came along, first we just had this glove. We didn't have masks or anything. So I took it upon myself, and I hate I had to do it like that, took it upon myself too. Some of my organizers, we did a video camera thing that, we didn't have shields. We didn't have no kind of shields. We didn't have no shields on drive-through. We didn't have the mask or anything. So it's amazing how, hey, it's not amazing. For one thing, is why did I have to just go and do this, which they should have did this upon themselves, the McDonald's
Right.
Corporation.
Right. They
Which
should have
did.
provided a safe workplace. You shouldn't have had to do this.
Exactly, which I did, and I accomplished that. And I'm very proud of that. They did put shields on that. But unfortunately, the store that I was working at that time, they closed down and they're rebuilding it. Okay, now I am at another McDonald's store in Raleigh, but it's in a Walmart store, which that means that I still have one shield and the same mask, which the little black mask that they gave us at McDonald's. I could put a lighter, flick a lighter, blow it out. I could sneeze through it and sneeze on my arm. That's not good.
That's not
That's
helpful.
not good. That's not nothing. That's not nothing, really, honestly. But then at the McDonald's I'm at now, like I said again, we only have one shield. It's thousands and thousands of people coming to this store.
Yeah,
Even though it's in Walmart, but still, they come to the little McDonald's store. They don't have but one little shield at the little cashier. I don't think that's safe.
No, that's
Still wearing
clearly
the
not
little
enough.
black mask. No, it's not. We're still wearing the little black mask, which, hey, that's what we got to do. But I'm not good with that. But this is what I got to do to make a living and pay my bills.
Yeah, and good on you.
You know,
for-
they're not trying to help us do anything as far as compromise or trying to help us. If it's paid days, sick days, or anything like that, they're not trying to do anything like that.
And I would argue it's because no one's made them do it. Because, you know, everyone, we keep hearing about this idea of a benevolent employer who gives us all these wonderful things. But yet I hear, you know, the stories from you and from others of employers that aren't doing the right thing. They aren't creating safe workplaces. They aren't providing decent wages, decent conditions, decent hours. And this is one of these moments where out of chaos, I think we gather together and we demand better. And this is that moment, which is why I'm proud of you guys for stepping up and speaking out in this moment, because I think people are listening. I think the fact that, you know, we now are realizing just how important your work is and the work of other essential frontline workers, how important that is. I hope that we'll remember and we'll continue to fight for you and get the just rewards that you deserve.
I hope so too, because I'm not gonna stop until I get what we deserve,
Good for you.
what all of us deserve.
So let me ask you, did you get one of those cute little essential worker pins that McDonald's was handing out?
Oh no! Why would I want one of them?
So you even got cheated out of that.
Yeah, I really got cheated out of that, but I wouldn't want the one of them anyway. I am a essential worker, but that's not the point. You don't give me no pin. Give me a raise. Give me 15 and better.
There you go.
Don't give me no pin. The pin don't mean nothing. I'm still out here. I might get sick. I don't never know. I'm around people all the time. I don't know what's happening. I don't want no pin. I want better and more.
See, that's the right response. Take your pin and shove it up the dark side of the moon. Give me a decent wage. Give me safe working conditions. Give me health insurance. Let me ask you that, because
Yes,
you know.
definitely.
You know,
Go ahead,
they're
sir.
putting you in this situation where you're literally putting your life on the line so someone can have an order of French fries, and they can hand out, you know, $1 billion to their shareholders. Do you have health insurance in the event that you do get sick?
No, sir, I do not. No, sir, I do not. I don't have anything. Only thing I get is what I get from McDonald's. When I go to work, that's the only thing I get. It's my paycheck. That's it.
And how long have you been
Which I
working?
deserve more.
How long have you been working
Oh,
in fast food?
Actually, in this McDonald's, actually about 7 to 8 years, but actually in all over 10 to 15.
You know, because we keep hearing this frame, Rita, that it's just high school kids, just pimply face high school kids getting their first job. And yet, you know, I'll tell you, my experience is it's mostly women with children. It's mostly older women who have had to go back into the workplace.
Yeah.
Come again?
Well, I have kids, but my kids is older, and I am 53 years old.
So it kind of that kind of takes away from the frame of the pimply faced teenager, and kind of puts it back where I keep arguing that it should be. That these are jobs that right now are supporting families, and that should pay a wage that can actually support a family.
Exactly. Even not even just a family. I mean, still people that still work, they need to be able to pay their bills. I can't even pay anything actually right now.
So
On the real.
So what do you want people to know? Because look, you know, I think there's a moment right now where we're looking at folks who had to go to work every day in this, and we've put them up on a pedestal. We're calling them heroes, and we're calling them essential, and you know, throwing a couple of extra pennies at them at certain times. What do you want folks to know about what you're going through in this moment, as the rest of us are trying to stay safe in our homes? What do you want people to know?
Actually, what I would think I want people to know, I still want everybody to be safe, but I think it's crap because we getting treated like shit at McDonald's, and I don't mean to really cuss, but that's where we getting treated, and I think it can be better, and we do need $15 plus. We need everything that we're not getting, we need it. Everything.
Right.
Because they can give it to us. They can give it to us.
No, there clearly is enough money there. I mean, when you look at the reality, is you know what I saw is, and this may be just me missing something, but they made $6 billion in profit last year as a corporation.
Of course, yeah.
And that's not including
$15.
Right. That's not including the profit that each of these franchisees gets. This is just the main corporation. So there's money there to be had. Your labor creates an enormous amount of wealth. It's time that wealth be divvied up a little more equitably.
You're exactly right. And it does need to be.
So at the end of this, again, the last question I wanted to get to you, because we want people to be safe. We want people to be able to not go to work and come home and not get their families sick. What do you want folks to do? What is it we can get legislation passed, legislators to do? What can we get legally passed through? What do you think? What are we asking for on that front?
I'm asking for sick pay. I'm asking for the raise the 15. Raise 15. I'm asking for, I don't know, I'm just asking for a lot. It's just so much that I can really ask for. But
right.
I'm asking for what people in the industry, in the working industry can need.
No, I mean, you need health insurance, first and foremost. You need health insurance if you get sick, that you can go to the doctor. You need paid sick time, so that in the event that you do get sick, you don't have to go broke or end up homeless because you got sick. And you need a living wage so you can be able to support yourself. And more importantly than all of that, you need safe working conditions so that you don't get sick from the beginning. There's so much of this that can be legislated, so much that can be demanded. And I think the work that you guys are doing by taking this to the streets and speaking out is so important. That's why I thank you, Rita, and I thank you for coming on and sharing some thoughts with us, and I wish you the best.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Rita Blaylock. See, it seems that simple to me. If we can have a $500 billion slush fund for corporate America, if we can have a giant trough for the Wall Street pigs to put their snouts in, we should be at least be able to provide safe workplaces, health insurance for people when they get sick, some time off to help heal, to get better, and a reasonable living wage. Is that too much? For an industry, understand, an industry that rakes in billions in profit. Something wrong with that. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me at rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1949. That was a very important day for workers on the islands of Hawaii. It marked the passage of the Federal Hawaii Employment Relations Act, more popularly known as the Little Wagner Act. The Wagner Act had granted the right to unionize to most non-agricultural workers in the United States. The Little follow-up to the act extended the right to join a union to Hawaiian agricultural workers. The International Longshoremen and Warehousemen Union were instrumental in pushing for this legislation. Robert Kumanera, who had worked on the island of Koloa, reflected on the significance of the right to join a union, saying, "It was not a matter of wages and conditions, but pride. Because when you say you work for the plantation, you were pitied, that it was synonymous with $1 a day, and that you were living in one old plantation shack. So, union, to me, union is pride." 1 year after winning the right to organize, sugar plantation workers participated in a massive strike. Some 26,000 workers embarked upon a 79-day strike against the plantation bosses, effectively shutting down 33 of 34 plantations on the island. The strike was seen as a turning point for labor relations in Hawaii. Workers across ethnic lines joined together in solidarity against the paternalistic plantation system. During the strike, the workers received broad community support. As Kumanero stated, it was a matter of pride for the workers. In 1943, before the Little Wagner Act, there were 13 labor contracts in Hawaii. By 1947, that number had multiplied to 166 labor contracts. Union representation was now a reality for Hawaiian workers, and there was nothing little about that. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So the story coming out now, The Gap. Everyone knows who The Gap is, right? The apparel chain. Evidently, The Gap is looking for robots. They want a bunch of robots to come in and do the picking because they have to do the social distancing. They can't have people shoulder to shoulder, which is how their systems have been set up. And this is going to take a lot of retooling if we're going to get through this. This is going to be employers working with their employees to think about how to do things better and smarter and taking the workers' view into account. This is the important part. These employers are going to have to get used to something that they haven't had in a long time, and that's listening to the people that work for them. They're the ones who ultimately are going to be the ones who figure out, hey, how can I do this job better, smarter, safer? But The Gap, they've figured we're going to go to robots. So they've ordered, I guess, a bunch of robots. They're not getting them as fast as they want, but they'll have a bunch put online. And it's got me in this thought process right now where, I've had these conversations with people who, are almost Luddites. I don't say that I'm a Luddite. When I go to the grocery store, I still, even today, do not use the self-checkout because, those folks still need jobs. And maybe that's the wrong thing, but I still think that where we need people and they need their jobs, we need to encourage and promote that. But there's the other side of me that goes, technology is going to make our lives better, going to make our lives easier. There's a way of doing this that's going to advance things. But you can't have working people being the loser in all of this. And this is where I've always been a supporter of universal basic income. The idea that there's got to be a basic amount of money. Now, Andrew Yang was running around talking about, $1,000 a month. And truth be told, $1,000 a month is not nearly enough for people to live on. Sorry. It's just not. Now you could argue, well, that's what a minimum wage worker working at a fast food place makes in a month. That's what they bring home. And that's a crime in my view. The vast majority of people, there's just no way you're going to live on that. I think there's got to be a universal basic income, an amount for that people can live on, and then find employment in whatever new technologies or new things or new opportunities they can find. But we still have to have that base. And this is really a huge change from where we've been over the last, my entire life, which is, you go to work, you punch a clock, you collect a paycheck at the end of the week, and, if the employer needs you, you get to come back the next week. This is a different idea in that we want to encourage technological advancement because for a society, it moves us forward. We have huge productivity gains. But this time, my view is that working people have to share in that productivity gain. Because if you look at the charts that are out there, and there are tons of them, you can Google it online, there are tons of charts on productivity of it just, a 45-degree angle straight across the graph. And workers' wages used to follow that perfectly. As more work was done, as more productivity happened, raises happened, better benefits, there was a share. And that's because you had unions fighting for the share of it. And then sometime around the mid-1970s, that deadline, complete deadline, wages have been stagnant and declining ever since. Which is how we've ended up in this wildly unequal society in which we find ourselves, where we have a lot of really, really freaking rich people, the people who figured out how to organize something and get everybody to work for them and for peanuts, and they reaped all the reward, while those workers who are showing up to the McDonald's and showing up to the fast food restaurants and showing up to those retail jobs, all being told, don't ask for too much or we'll automate you out of existence. Be happy you got a job. While they're reaping billions. This is one of those moments where, in my view, we start talking about how do we make sure that productivity gain gets shared. I think through greater union density and demanding better wages, hours, conditions on the jobs that we have, but also government policy that's going to encourage that shared dividend. That it's just not the wealthy investors who own shares in the company that reap all of the benefits, that all of us as shareholders in this country, in this enterprise known as the United States of America, we get a dividend out of that. Much like they have in Alaska with the oil. Everyone gets a check every year from the oil companies. We need something like that here. And this pandemic has really, I'm hoping, opened the eyes of a lot of people on how precarious their situations are. I mean, we're conceivably in a bad way right now as a nation. Many families I know who are worried about, hey, are we going to be able to pay the rent at the first of the month? Are we going to be able to make the mortgage payment? And what happens if I can't? This is that moment where we have an amazing opportunity to think bold, to think radical. And is Joe Biden the guy? I don't know yet. But I see Joe Biden as a vessel to get us where we want to go. And it's got to come from us. It's got to come from we the people. These demands, and it has to come from us. And what's interesting to me is I spend my days discussing these topics with people, and I'm amazed at how well corporate America's PR schemes have worked in dividing we the working class. I had a conversation with a guy today. So, well, I'm pro-union all the way. I'm 100% union guy, except for those government unions. And you go, whoa, wait a second. They're workers like you are. They go to work the same as you do. Why are their jobs any different or less than yours? Stop dividing us. Stop tearing us apart. We're all in this together. And because this is how the wealth class works. And it's always been this way. It's always been the war between labor and capital. And capital usually wins because, well, as Jay Gould said, I can easily pay half the working class to murder the other half. They understand that. Now, they're not hiring thugs with sticks yet to come out and beat us in the streets. They're not hiring, goons to come and, club us yet. But they've got PR machines, incredible PR machines that get us regurgitating their talking points. Those job-killing regulations. We're taxed as a corporation, bleeding us dry. They've really, you have to give them credit, done a masterful job of convincing us that the medicine we need is what's going to kill us, while simultaneously telling us that the medicine that could kill us is what's going to save us. I mean, Trump and his hydroxychloroquine is a perfect metaphor for what's happened in this country over the last 40 years. It really is. The fact that all of the things that I think could make us better, Republicans and the right have been fighting against since, 70 years now. Going back to the John Birch Society and William F. Buckley and the conservative movement and all of those, from that point all the way forward into the Powell Memo era and the creation of the Heritage Foundation and the American Legislative Exchange Council and all of those state policy network think tanks that do nothing but come up with really bad ideas for moments like this. You don't think they pay those people high six figures to dream up bad ideas and put them into policy papers that no one reads except each of the other think tanks and maybe a handful of people like me who've got nothing better to do. But those are lying around. So when the crisis hits, they can deregulate. Because all I've been hearing from conservative groups right now is we need deregulation. We need to get rid of those onerous job-killing regulations and give the economy a jump start. We need to get rid of all those environmental impact studies. We need to get rid of all of that stuff. Let business go forward. So business can do, as George Carlin used to say, do what business does. Give you a good you-know-what. Bend over and drive the sale home, so to speak. This is where we are. And understand, they've got really, really smart people who focus group test everything. I say most of the messages that come out of the right wing are focus group tested, think tank approved. They have wrung them every which way so that they can boil them down to the lowest common denominator. Death tax, to me, is the most brilliant frame that you could have ever come up with. Because nobody likes paying taxes, but it got working people to think, I don't want to pay taxes when I die. Except the only people who do are people who made at the time over $11 million, or had over $11 million. And there are very few of us in that category. John D. Rockefeller was the first person to pay an estate tax. He paid a 70% estate tax. This is back in the 30s. Do you know we still have rich Rockefellers today? Interestingly enough. So the whole idea that, you're going to bankrupt all these people and all their kids are going to be paupers is ridiculous. But again, it's the sale job that they give us. It's the BS that they throw at us. And sadly, we put up with it, which is why I'll tell you, I was thrilled to hear those two women who, stepped up, stepped forward, spoke out, and said, look, we're going to demand better. We demand better wages. We demand better hours. We demand better conditions. It's a lesson I think all of us should learn. All of us should at this moment, because the bad ideas are coming. Trust me. They're going to come fast and furious and in the dark of the night. It's our responsibility to step up and speak out. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, our good friend Sarah Burris is going to be back. I'm looking forward to that. Quick break. Right back.
That united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I love those nature shows that probe the behavior and intelligence of birds, elephants, and other fellow creatures. However, there's one exotic critter that shows have ignored and is crying out for analysis: humanoid superrichinoids. While some in this rare species seem like normal Homo sapiens, as a group, the superrichinoids exhibit aberrant destructive tendencies. In particular, an insatiable desire to accumulate boundless personal wealth, as if one's net worth is one's true worth. They view life as a primal competition to be number one, the richest of all. Robert Frank, an analyst of plutocracy, points to the insane competitive zealotry of Larry Ellison, the multi-billionaire co-founder of Oracle. Frank writes that when Ellison learned that a rival billionaire was having a 400-foot yacht built, a boat one-third bigger than a football field, Ellison rushed out to get a 450-foot yacht. Toys are one thing, but the uber-rich tend to feel entitled to exploit rank-and-file workers, crush small competitors, pay no taxes, rip off consumers, defraud investors, contaminate our environment, buy elections, monopolize markets, and demand to be publicly celebrated and idolized. But when poked, these wannabe demigods turn into wimps. Now that their freakish greed is being denounced by the American majority and politicians of both parties, the royals are squealing like pigs stuck in a fence. Their hubris is being openly mocked, and I suspect that their whimpering is due to their finally realizing that their bloated net worth can't buy respect, and they can't handle that reality. This is Jim Hightower saying we've got to get back to building a real economy based on the productivity and true genius of America's grassroots people.
What do the corporate powers from Wall Street to Walmart have in common? They hate the Hightower Lowdown. You can see why at www.hightowerlowdown.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So it's graduation season, and look, my oldest daughter, she's graduated or graduating. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. They're going to go and videotape her walking across something. Then, maybe later in the summer, there'll be an actual graduation or a video presentation or something. And it's been kind of interesting to watch how different places do the graduation ceremonies and how they have them read out and some of the dignitaries that have been, kind of duped into doing the whole thing. You've heard them all. That's why I've asked our good friend Sarah Burris to come share some thoughts with us on the graduation season and also share some thoughts on the top news of the day. Sarah, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you. I didn't know your daughter was graduating. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Turned 18 just the other day, 2 days ago. Yeah.
Aww.
Sad.
You could do like a green screen thing where she could walk, in front of the green screen and like pretend to shake Barack Obama's hand. You could just like put him in or something. I don't know, but
something. They're thinking of doing something. There's going to be a drive-by, I guess. We're doing some of that. But like I told her, I don't remember my high school graduation. I know I went. I don't remember anything. I don't remember who was on the stage. I remember I got a little piece of paper that I can't find today. She's got the greatest story in the world. Our class was so bad, they canceled everything.
Yeah, that's true. There you go. I don't remember mine either. I remember before it and I remember after it, but I don't remember during.
Yeah, I remember wearing the dress. That's all.
Yeah, that's about it. But what was so funny this graduation season is the unfortunate names that were slipped in for dignitaries to read, like the great governor of Mississippi, Mr. Tad Reeves, just Tad Reeves, like that name alone is always
right, which is why he didn't question anybody else's name.
Right, exactly, because when somebody said that their name was Harry Ascrack, he read it aloud and
got it right too.
And I was saying too, like this, it's not, Harry Ascrack is not the only one. Lika Madik, also graduated along with his twin sister, Suka Madik. and their cousin Munch McCoochie.
Okay. Well, I don't even know how you get that name out. I can barely say Smith, let alone that stuff.
I know, right? Actually, it's one of those things that for some reason I can always say the most profane things.
Yeah.
Really easy.
So I gotta wonder, if the staffer actually went through the names and asked for clarification so that he would have the right pronunciation. Because if you remember, George W. Bush used to have people's names phonetically spelled out with like all kinds of words. Is it possible that that one of these folks had that?
I doubt it. I honestly doubt it. I don't think they do it at that level. And I don't think George W. Bush was the only president. I think a lot of times whenever you have these complicated names, it's that there's some staffer being like, yeah, no, there's no way he's going to know that.
No, my wife does it for me. She does the same thing.
Right. It seems perfect. So I would not be surprised if Tad just thought this was going to be fine. And it was just, a bunch of high school students and he was going to read their names off and then Harry Ascrack.
Yeah, but that happens every year. I mean, when I was in high school, we had Harry Ness. His middle initial was P. So, that's what it was. So everyone does it. They get away. And this time some top name people they got had. Good
Thank
for them.
Goodness.
Good
We
for
need
them.
that.
We need a
right
little
now.
levity in this moment,
Yeah.
especially on a day-to-day when we now see the number of people who've passed from this virus just terrible. And you've got Trump saying we're going to now lower the flags now after all of this time, going to lower the flags to half mast. And I thought you asked the perfect question, which is, great. When do we raise them?
Yeah, that's the thing that's really been hard to think about is, how many names, how many people does it take for us to lower them? And then at what point is it really appropriate to say, okay, we can raise it again? Like how many people die? And, how many do we go down to? Does it go down to one? Does it go down to none? And it's just, we're about to hit the 100,000 mark. And I don't feel like Trump really understands that these aren't just numbers, right? Like these are people's family members. And it's just hard to think about, I lost my grandfather recently, not to COVID. And I can't imagine, not being there. It was the most important thing I will ever do in my life is be there with him when he passed.
Right.
And there are people that are dying alone and their family members don't get to be with them. And these are real people. And I don't think Trump understands that. I don't think that he can conceive of that level of importance in someone's life. And I don't think that he has the heart to really be able to empathize with people's families right now. And that's the thing that I hate so much about this is that we need that, we need those leaders who really have that understanding and that ability to, hold a survivor and hug a widow and all of those things. And we just don't have it. No,
in fact, when Obama gave the commencement speech over the last weekend, it was like 8 minutes long, but, there was that moment where I said, this is the kind of leadership that we need. Someone who's going to bring us together and have those words to console and those words to give some real hope instead of this kind of, reality show, self-help, guru kind of pitch that we're getting from Trump. Because, now we find out that, if we have a major spike, he said he's doing nothing to shut anything down or do anything to stop it. So now we're looking down the barrel of, another spike and something that's really, really dangerous. Yeah. I mean, they're talking about this fall, things getting even worse. And, we've got 50 states that are opening now. I'm still not leaving the house. I'm terrified. I flew here, to be with my grandfather when he was sick and then as he passed. And so I don't want to fly back to Washington because it just seems really scary and really dangerous right now. I understand that everybody else is going back to normal, but I'm not there yet. And I don't think that there are a lot of other people in the country who are ready to take that big step. And I think once people are ready, in the fall, we're going to see another resurgence and everybody's going to freak out again. Right. And
the
what you've
markets
got
are going
now
to
is,
freak out again.
the sad thing now is you've got the Republican Party who's basically laying out this road that we're going to all have to travel down, which is one of no real extensions for unemployment. They're talking about cutting the additional $600. There's going to be no help for families who are going to want to be able to stay home, and they're talking about immunity for employers at a time when you need to make sure that they are providing safe workplaces. It just seems insane to me, but this is what the Republican Party is telling the working class of this country.
And I hope that people remember that in November, because, if you're being forced to go to work and risk your life, those guys in Washington are the ones that are making you do it, right? Like, we need to make sure everyone in the country really firmly understands Mitch McConnell is the one who's sending you back to work to risk your life so that people can, I don't know, whatever. People can get the cars that they want. People can,
Get their
buy
French fries.
whatever. Yeah, people can, go out to their bars. And it seems so dangerous to me. And it's just absolutely evil that people then don't have any recourse to fight back to that. Either you go to work and risk dying, or you quit and you can't feed your family. And it's downright evil is what it is.
Which is why I said from the beginning, I didn't see the guaranteed minimum income in the HEROES Act like I was hoping. I thought, if Nancy Pelosi said it's a messaging bill, so I would have thrown that in there. But also I would have thrown in there an option. If you're being forced to go back to work, if Trump's going to use the Defense Production Act to force slaughterhouses and food processing plants open, workers should have the option of staying home and staying on unemployment and have the real choice. That would then, make employers go, we need to get better wages for people, and we need to make sure that those workplaces are safe to entice people to come back to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's sort of what's happening with a lot of the, even though the meat processing plants are not, they're not willing to take those steps. And so people still aren't coming back to work.
Yeah.
Those folks are not necessarily paid well enough that they can't then go and find something else. And so then people who, they don't have enough people coming into slaughterhouses and chicken processing plants and stuff like that. They don't have enough people. So now we're having a meat shortage.
Yeah,
and
it's scary. It's scary stuff. And, and speaking of, Obama's commencement speech, which I thought was really, really good. What did you think of Ben Sass's commencement speech?
There's nothing like a good piece of sass. Ben Sass is, he's just not the brightest bulb in a tanning bed. He's a few fries short of the Happy Meal. So generally, whenever he speaks, I don't take him seriously. Every once in a while, he'll say something where you're like, oh my God, a Republican just said that? But even now, like, he's done so many things, I feel like, where he's walked it back, that I'm just like, I don't even trust whenever he tries to be a good guy anymore. And so it's just like, I think, I don't know. He's a big old sass.
There you go. Now the big news today, obviously, Amy Klobuchar. The vetting process begins for who the VP is. Biden has, I guess the Biden campaign announced that they're vetting her. Do you see her being the pull?
Well, so there are actually a bazillion people they seem to be vetting. We know Kamala is, Val Demings, Stacey Abrams. I can't remember the governor of New Mexico, but I know she was on MSNBC the other day and was talking about being vetted. There are a whole lot of people being vetted. I honestly think that the only reason the Biden campaign is vetting Amy Klobuchar is that they're scared of her. Because, she throws things at people and she has a serious anger problem. And, I just don't see Biden being willing to get a stapler thrown at his head.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's just me.
So that's that. If she is the VP choice, you have just now written the first Saturday Night Live skit.
Thank you. Chunk.
Because I'm seeing this and that's big news and I'm going, I'm hoping she's not it. I'm hoping to get someone. We're in a moment in history where we need a bold thinker. We need a visionary. We need someone who's going to excite the base and excite people for the possibilities of radical change in the future. And I just don't see her being that.
I would say too, like I don't understand why everybody thinks Amy Klobuchar was like this brilliant debater. She just had a whole bunch of like Southern colloquialisms, or not even Southern, but like Midwestern colloquialisms that she just sort of had somebody write for and threw them in there. And that's not issues, right? Yeah. Like you can't. It's like Sarah Palin's lipstick on a pig thing. Like that's not. I don't want to have a conversation with somebody like that. That might work for the Republican Party. It does not work for us. Right. We need somebody who's incredibly intelligent, who can stand up to Mike Pence and be like, actually, Mike. And I think that the other women that he's looking at, Stacey Abrams, Val Demings, they're all brilliant, amazing women. And I'd be so excited to have them on the ticket. Amy Klobuchar, not so much.
Yeah, I'm still hoping for Elizabeth Warren. That's probably not going to happen.
But see, we've had this conversation before. Like, I want her to be the chairwoman of the banking committee. Like, we need her so bad to basically just completely fix the entire bank system.
She can be our Jared Kushner.
Oh, I just want her to. I want her to fix it. I want her to fix all of the things that Republicans have done. And I think, honest to God, I think we will take back the Senate. I mean, if you look at the numbers that are coming out, holy cats. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, a global pandemic will do that for you.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, Republicans trying to sell you your family down the river. It turns out people don't like that.
Yeah, now the funny thing that I saw today, the greatest line I saw coming from Mark Cuban. Have you seen Cuban's bit on with Sean Hannity?
Yes, that was so much gold.
Yeah, it's what I've been saying for a while. I mean, here's the most powerful man in the world, constantly playing the poor me, I'm the victim card.
Which I don't understand how, like, he's supposed to be this big macho, whatever dude who doesn't wear a mask. And then all of a sudden, but he's just always the victim. And I agree. And I love when Mark Cuban, talks about him, because Mark Cuban's an actual billionaire, and Trump isn't. And I think he knows that. And so, and the fact that he did it on Hannity, like Trump's buddy, welcomed on one of Trump's biggest foes and then let him run free and say whatever he wanted. It was just like, oh, that happened. It was beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Most certainly. But here's the thing that scares me. You got now Trump, like I said, Trump's said that we're not going to be shutting back down. Doesn't matter. In fact, I've had some, messages from people with some pretty nihilistic views of where this goes. Just kill off all the old people and, the survival of the fittest. And, we'll get to the other side that way. The weirdest part for me is the fact that it's these churches that seem to be the ones leading us. And maybe the whole Left Behind thing is part of this. Maybe they view this as an opportunity to actually encourage the end of the world. I don't know. But I just saw this story in California that some 1,200 pastors say that they're going to defy the state's order to do the service stuff. And I'm just going, really? You really want to bring your people into your church so that they can die? It's insane to me.
I do think that it has some sort of Revelation style left behindism happening. And I know that Georgia tried something similar to what the pastors in California are saying. It did not go well for the pastors in Georgia, and they ultimately did re-close their churches. So, I mean, if these pastors want to risk their own lives and the lives of their parishioners, then rock on, go for it. In a couple of weeks, I think that they're going to change their mind when a whole bunch of people that they know end up in the hospital. And, at this point, I feel like for months now, we've really been fighting this battle where we're just constantly trying to run against the brick wall over and over again to explain, no, this is a bad idea. Please don't hurt yourself. Please don't, take these drugs that could kill you. Please don't, risk other people's lives. Like all of these things where we have really, as a culture, tried to convince these people, you are going to die. And they just don't listen. And at some point, you really have to be like, all right, I'm going to hide in my house. And if you want to kill yourself, then tally ho. I just hope they don't take anybody down with them.
Yeah,
That's
see,
the thing
that's
I'm
the
the most
problem.
worried
I
about.
used to believe that. You've got the right to do whatever dumb nonsense you want to do. You want to jump off a bridge, you knock yourself right out. But the problem is that once they start banging around and this expands, it's gonna end up being those fast food workers that I talked to in the last hour who are going to be the ones that suffer. It's going to be the
good
woman
thing,
that I.
though, the thing that is the saving grace for me are all of these studies that are coming out saying that wearing masks is going to protect you. Like 80% of the coronavirus can be avoided if you wear a mask. The fact that if you go into a McDonald's, you cannot get up to the counter, and that is never going to change, right? Like there are people that are wearing masks, people are standing far enough away. So I do have faith that that workers are going to be protected more than we think that they are, simply from those two things. And if we can just use that and make sure that all of our workers are protected in that way, then I have faith that maybe the fools who are, trying to kill us all are, maybe they can just isolate it in their little congregations.
I hope so, but the stories that I hear from these workers it's not as great as what you're thinking.
I know.
It's
I wish we need to start. We've been making masks for first responders and nurses and hospitals, and we need to start making them for fast food workers. We need to start making them for servers and bartenders and all of those people, because they're going to need it.
Yeah, there you go. Also, we on the religious front, real quick. Again, just how crazy religion has gotten, and when did religion get this nuts? I'm looking at this mayor of this Dallas suburb who evidently told a city council member that women shouldn't be allowed to lead the prayer at the public meeting because it's against the Bible. We shouldn't have women leading prayer. And I'm going, how do these people get elected?
That, and you just have to wonder, how's it working out for all those men leading the churches? How's that been working out for you? Because you don't see a whole lot of reports of nuns molesting children. You do, I will argue, you do actually see a couple. You see millions of children who got molested by priests and male pastors. And so, it's just one of those things where you kind of want to ask these people, really? Really? Bless your hearts.
Also, Donald Trump today didn't wear a mask. Are we surprised?
No. I mean, the man's been taking a drug that could kill him. So I think he has a death wish. At this point, that's got to be the only reason. The drug that he's taking, it can make his skin all elasticy and peel and stuff, and it can make his hair fall out, and it can make him paranoid and all of these other weird side effects, including like the heart rhythm issue. And he still took it. And so you're just like,
do you
now
think
he doesn't want to wear a
took
mask.
it though?
I wonder, that was one of the things, my weird conspiracy theories were that maybe some goddess doctor like slipped some Lexapro into a bottle just to, get him to calm down a minute, or like somebody, some doctors like back there scraping aspirin off of the written on the pill and just like throwing it in a bottle. I mean, people have made jokes that it was actually Flintstone vitamins. I don't know, but I'm amazed that he hasn't had serious medical issues, because Nancy Pelosi's right. He's not in good shape. He is not a healthy person. And what's been really interesting is like what she actually said has been lost in the fact that she said he's morbidly obese.
Right.
But the way that she talked about it is she was like genuinely saying, this is not healthy for you. Like, it was a very sort of motherly, caring thing for her to be like, this is a bad idea. You're going to get hurt. And you really don't expect that from a Democrat, being like, Mr. President, please don't die. Right? Like, please don't do anything to hurt yourself. You don't really expect that, because we're all kind of just like,
take double the dose.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of people who are just like, I don't care if he takes it. Good luck. But, that's also Nancy Pelosi who says that she prays for him. And
which is why women shouldn't be allowed to pray in public.
Right. Because, they'll pray for everybody across the board, even Donald Trump.
Oh, it's crazy. Let me ask you a last line of questioning because I want to focus on the McConnell bit because McConnell has said the next phase of stimulus is not going to be more than $1 trillion. They're not going to allow the extra $600 to go to unemployment, and there has to be immunity for employers. What are the chances of that passing when you compare it to the $3 trillion messaging bill that the Democrats just passed not too long ago in the House?
It's never going to happen. And I think, that's already the bill that they passed in the House, McConnell said is dead on arrival. And there's no way in hell Democrats are going to let something like that go through, like some of the immunity for businesses go through, especially in election season. If Republicans want to pass that in the Senate, then by golly, I wish them luck. Every Democrat can vote against it. The Republicans can vote for it and have it on the record, and they can send it to the House where it can die a slow death. But there's no way in hell that passes the House in an election season.
But here's the problem with that. Now you end up in a situation where the economy is in a real bad spot. The number today, 2.4 million more unemployment numbers, up to almost 40 million people in this country unemployed. You're not going to flip the switch and everybody go back immediately. You're going to need that extended unemployment. You're going to need to get that extra money into people's pockets. And you've got the Republicans who very short-sightedly are just so stuck on that $600. It's really incredible to me how that's really just stuck between their ears.
We have seen this movie before. Remember all the shutdowns? They never end well for Republicans. And if you have the House who has passed a bill that's going to do all of these great things that actually does help Americans, and Americans are like, yeah, I need that unemployment money. I need the extra stimulus. I need all of these things. And Republicans are going to say no to it in an election year. They're going to try and do that. It's just not going to work. It's going to be like the shutdown battle, except I think it's going to be much shorter because I think Republicans will panic. I think McConnell will hear from his caucus, you cannot do this. I cannot survive this. There are too many Republicans who have really bad polling right now who are literally trying to save their political careers.
Cory Gardner.
Yeah, Cory Gardner, Martha McSally, Susan Collins, Tom Tillis. Oh my God, Tom Tillis. Of all people. So, I think there's nothing, they don't have any cards that they're holding. Republicans they have nothing.
Yeah, but
and
never count them out. They are the party of scorched earth. I do believe that they would be willing to let the whole thing burn down just to save their ideology.
They are gum on the bottom of our boots.
And on that, we will let it go. Sarah, always great talking with you. I appreciate your time. Good stuff.
Thank you. It's good to see you. It's nice to be back.
It's great to have you back. Our good friend Sarah Burris, reporter at Raw Story. Make sure you check out the work she does there. Incredible stuff, rawstory.com. Let's take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Saving work in America, one show at a time. The Rick Smith Show.
In an impacted area, please evacuate.
Michigan dams fail, causing massive flooding and toxic threat.
It's one of the most powerful storms ever recorded in the Bay of Bengal.
Super cyclone Amphan slams into India. Trump administration hits renewable energy projects with rent increases. Plus, global emissions plunged an unprecedented 17% during pandemic shutdowns.
All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Thank you so much for that, Desi. Now, I'm even more confused.
See? Even The Daily Show's Trevor Noah is confused by you. This is your Green News Report.
Where's Brad?
Uh-oh. Okay, Desi Doyen, I'm almost afraid to ask, but what do you have for us today?
Powerful cyclone Amphan, the strongest storm ever recorded in the Bay of Bengal, made landfall in eastern India near the Bangladeshi border on Wednesday night, bringing major flooding with reports of widespread damage. Bangladesh, one of the poorest nations in the world, had evacuated 2.4 million people to shelters. Officials say it will take days to assess the extent of the damage.
And of course, those evacuated in India and Bangladesh were also under stay-at-home orders, and they have to go to shelters now and try to socially distance inside the shelters?
Yes, it's a terrible situation.
And that's a similar situation to what we're seeing in Michigan right now.
Yes, about 10,000 residents were forced to evacuate from catastrophic record flooding amid the global pandemic after 2 aging dams failed in central Michigan on Tuesday night. The region has seen record rains of as much as 250% above normal in recent weeks. Both dams were privately owned and had been rated in fair to unsatisfactory condition. As we go to air, no deaths have been reported. Michigan's Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer declared a state of emergency and in a press conference on Wednesday remarked on the stunning impact of 2 simultaneous disasters.
It's hard to believe that we're in the midst of a 100-year crisis, a global pandemic, and that we're also dealing with a flooding event that looks to be the worst in 500 years.
But wait, there's more.
Uh-oh.
The floodwaters threaten to inundate Dow Chemical Company headquarters and some 50 miles of toxic Superfund cleanup sites where Dow dumped toxic, cancer-causing chemical waste for decades. The floodwaters could spread poisonous chemicals like dioxin. Studies have confirmed that heavy downpours have already increased nearly 40% since 1950 in the Midwest alone because of man-made climate change. And obviously now we see our aging infrastructure is not ready.
Yeah, there's another dozen or so dams across the state of Michigan that have also been found to be structurally unsound.
In Washington, the Trump administration has been pushing hard for tax giveaways and other financial assistance and bailouts for the oil and gas industry,
instead of fixing the infrastructure.
Going so far as to give oil companies drilling on public lands a break on royalties paid to the public for extracting their natural resources because of the coronavirus pandemic. But this week, the Trump Bureau of Land Management decided suddenly that this was the week to end a 2-year-long rent holiday for solar and wind projects that are operating on public lands. The Bureau of Land Management hit them with a massive retroactive rent bill.
Wow.
In the middle of a pandemic.
They're giving free money away to the oil and gas industry, but when it comes to the renewable industry, oh, you must pay the rent.
But I can't pay the rent.
You must pay the rent.
Finally, the wave of shutdowns caused by the coronavirus pandemic has fueled a massive drop in global greenhouse gas emissions. According to a new analysis published this week, daily global carbon dioxide emissions plunged an estimated 17% in April over the same period last year, much of the drop from reduced transportation from fossil fuel vehicles taken off the roads. Overall, the researchers estimate global carbon emissions will fall about 7% for the entire year. Of course, it won't last as countries resume economic and industrial activity. But that 7% drop is the amount that climate scientists say we must cut global emissions by every year for the next decade if we are to avert the worst impacts of climate change. According to climate scientist Dr. Michael Mann of Penn State University on a recent broadcast, the study demonstrates that individual behavioral changes are not enough. We need massive coordinated government action to tackle the climate crisis.
We can continue to maintain a healthy economy and solve this problem if we decarbonize our economy. It's not rocket science. If you move away from fossil fuel burning to renewable energy, then you can continue to maintain a healthy economy without generating that carbon pollution.
And another way to look at it, we reached 17% emissions reduction by accident, not by design. Imagine what we could do if we actually tried.
There's an idea. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I got to tell you, September of 2019, I was really happy to hear that one of my least favorite members of Congress was retiring. I was really hoping that he would lose and he would get thrown out on his ear. But James Sensenbrenner of Wisconsin announced back in September he was not going to seek election. And do you know why I'm not a Sensenbrenner fan? Really, the number one reason, and there's a bunch of reasons. There's he's been a solid right-wing crazy Republican for a very long time. It comes back to the '05 Real ID Act and how, like thieves in the night, they slipped that into a defense appropriation bill, and no vote on it. No one knew it was coming, and now here we are, saddled with papers, please, because as you know, here in Pennsylvania, we all now have to go get our real IDs, or we're not going to get into federal buildings or fly in a plane or anything, because they're not going to accept our Pennsylvania driver's license, all because of that guy. So I'm happy to see him go, but I'd like to see him replaced by someone who is going to move the ball forward, going to help us, well, change the direction of this country for the better. And that's why I have asked Tom Palowitz to come talk with us. He is a 2020 candidate for Congress there in Wisconsin's 5th Congressional District. Tom, thanks for taking time for us.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
So, here's the thing. Right from the start, the Real ID Act was one of those horrible pieces of legislation. And it's what really, I think, for a lot of people, put Sensenbrenner on their radar.
Yeah, and actually he was on the radar, I think, with the Patriot Act to start with. But it's funny because I grew up in Brown Deer, Wisconsin, and when I turned 18, he was my congressman. And in 2016, when President Trump was elected, he was still my congressman. And that was I was 55 at the time, and it just for somebody to be that long and that, I would say, not very involved, but like you said, doing things that aren't for the good of humanity or anything else is just unconscionable in my mind.
No, I'll tell you, I'm happy to see him go. But my fear is always when someone bad goes, that someone worse comes along, which is one of the arguments I make against term limits. Give me the right to vote somebody out. I've got the ultimate term limit, and that is my vote. I just wish the people of your district would have thrown the bum out a long time ago. But let's talk about why you should be that guy who takes over. I'm somebody who believes healthcare is a major, major issue, and we're seeing this right now in the heart of this global pandemic. The number of working people who just don't have access to adequate healthcare or any health insurance. I'm curious, where do you find yourself on the spectrum of make the Obamacare better, Medicare for all, something else? Where do you find yourself?
Yeah, well, first off, healthcare is a right, not a privilege. And I think it starts with, I've been a business owner for a while. I'm also a veteran. I was in the Navy. I was on a nuclear submarine for 4 years. And one of the things I learned a long time ago is that for some reason, we've decided in the United States to connect the labor market with the healthcare market. And I think that we need to now move toward disconnecting that, like most of the other developed countries in the world have done, because one, it hurts job portability, but the other is it hurts entrepreneurship. It's very hard to start a business when you really have to have access to healthcare, as expensive as it is. But the bottom line is we need to move to a universal system. And I think that's good. We have to do it over a phased-in process because there's plenty of people that already like their insurance. There's 3.5 million jobs in the insurance sector, the medical insurance sector in this country. We're going to have to reallocate those jobs and move them along. So one, I believe in bringing the Medicare age down to about 50. I know a lot of people in their 50s like me who, if you're afraid of losing your job or you're struggling to think if you can move out on your own or do something else, that really hurts people. So we need to bring that down. The 20 plus million Americans who still didn't have health insurance after the ACA need to be covered. And now the 27 million new people who lost their health insurance in April, what are we doing with them? And we've got President Trump still going to court to try to destroy the ACA as we know it. So healthcare, I think, is an essential right in this country for people. And I think that once people are covered, it can unlock tremendous potential in the economy.
Yeah, unleash that entrepreneurial spirit that we're told Americans are famous for. And you're right. Yes. I know a lot of people my age who would leave the job they have tomorrow to pursue other endeavors. It's just the healthcare that keeps them where they're at.
Yeah. And young people, they're working in this gig economy. They're holding sometimes 2, maybe 3 jobs, and their ability to find healthcare or even pay for it, a lot of them just decide to go uncovered. The great thing about the ACA is it helped people be covered up to age 26 on their parents' plan. I know my children took advantage of it, but now they're into this world where they're looking around going, wait a minute, I really need something for healthcare, and it might not be something I love to do. And I've just always thought, why wouldn't we want people to do what they love to do instead of worrying about whether they have good benefits and insurance or not?
No, that's an excellent point. And the other part that I throw out is that I think we have to have one entity that covers you from cradle to grave. Because I think then you have a better continuity of care, a better incentive for you to get preventative care. And also, maybe we start thinking as a society of doing things a little bit differently so that things outside of our control don't end up making us sick. Just kind of a thought that I'd like to throw out there.
Oh yeah, and the other thing to think about though is like this pandemic has shown how disjointed our healthcare system is. I mean, you can't even get hospital systems to talk to each other about just sharing data. How many hospital beds are empty? How many patients they really have? This information is key to being able to manage a pandemic. It's not available. It's very hard to get. So, but the other part is like you said before, is being able to create a proactive healthcare system. Right now, we have a reactive healthcare system and a for-profit system. I think there's a lot of hospitals right now hurting because there's not as many elective surgeries happening. That to me is sort of a tragic thing to think about. It's like we need more people being sick who are going to the hospitals to have surgery. Otherwise, the industry doesn't do well. And I've always thought, like, if you're in the middle of a heart attack, you're not looking to get 3 quotes to find out which hospital is going to be cheapest. You're trying to save your life. And that's the other thing about this is we value life. And we're willing to pay whatever it takes to make sure people are saved and are healthy. And we can't put a dollar price on it. And we can't just, we can't have people saying, well, they're just not worth it because they can't afford their insurance.
Yeah, and we're in one of these weird moments, Tom, and a time where I never thought we would be as a country, where there's actually a voice out there and people who hold elective office who are saying, well, this pandemic is bad, but, we're just going to go back to normal life and we'll let those, whatever category of weak you want to throw out there, the elderly, the infirmed, the disabled, we'll just let them go. And I can't believe that we're, actually having that bit of a conversation somewhere in this country.
It's tragic, and the other part of this whole thing though is that by making sure people have good access to healthcare, they'll make better decisions about their health. And I think we'll become a much more healthy country. I mean, we pay almost 40% higher than any other country in the world for our healthcare, and our results are way at the bottom.
Yeah, we're already paying for it. We're just not getting it, and it's a perfect thing.
Right.
No, and for me, the last bit on this, I think my thoughts are that healthcare is one of those things. Like in case of emergency, break glass. Yes. I don't want them having to go out and find other revenue streams. I want them to be there when we need them and not having to go out and make stuff up.
Yes. In the world of business, it's called cross-selling and upselling. The last thing I want is my primary care physician cross-selling and upselling me. It's not something I think would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's crazy. But here's the thing. I mean, while healthcare is a major issue, I know your campaign, you're talking about climate change. And I hope people will take a look at your website, tomforwi.com, and we'll get links out on our social media of how you can check out his website. But I know climate change is high up on your list. And I'm not sure a lot of politicians, say healthcare 1, climate 2, or vice versa. But equal importance, I think, of both. What's your idea on the climate?
Well, I think climate change is the #1 overall issue that we need to be addressing. One of the weird side effects of shutting down our economy has been that we've actually lowered the carbon load into the atmosphere. I just read today it was down 17% worldwide this year. We can't shut down the entire world economy for 3 months at a time moving forward just to try to lower the carbon load. We've got to get creative and we got to get inventive. But the one thing I was really encouraged by is recently green energy has overtaken coal in the United States as one of the leading forms of energy. And for us to backslide as we restart this economy, I think we have this wonderful opportunity as we restart the economy to really think about how do we restart in a way that's going to help everybody. I'm a big fan of what's called carbon fee and dividend, which is a market-based way for people to be able to decide how much carbon they want to release into the atmosphere. What it does is you pay for the intrinsic value of the carbon that you're using, and then everybody gets the same dividend check back either monthly or quarterly. And what that does is it allows you to decide if you want to make or lose money based on how you want to live. And what will happen is things that put a whole bunch of carbon in the atmosphere will get a lot more pricey, and people will move their dollars away. And it's a market-based phenomenon. In fact, it was put together by Republicans a long time ago, but Republicans want nothing to do for it right now.
It seems like they do that an awful lot.
I'm also a big fan of nuclear energy, which some people aren't. But like I said, I was on a nuclear submarine for 4 years. We were chatting earlier. The biggest challenge with the nuclear industry is what do we do with the waste? But I think we can figure that out. But we probably need to get back to thinking about building nuclear power plants, because being able to transition from an entire fossil fuel industry energy sector over to green energy is going to take a while. And I think nuclear can be that huge bridge to getting there.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that is you're going to run into is, there's still Chernobyl, there's still Fukushima, there's still a number of unfinished power plants around the country that were, giant money holes. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think the starting point is we have to stop subsidizing fossil fuels, and we have to start subsidizing things that'll put less carbon in the atmosphere. Because we're not paying for it right now, but our children and our grandchildren are going to end up paying for it. Right. I just saw a study recently that said that what they're talking about in the level of rising seas, they think they've actually underestimated slightly up to this point based on the way that their models were working. So now they're looking at a much higher rise in sea level. And you're talking about losing Florida. You're talking about losing the coast. I mean, what's the cost of that? And you and I aren't necessarily going to, that burden's not going to fall to us, but it's definitely going to fall to our children and grandchildren.
Yeah, well, maybe my kids will get beachfront property here in Pennsylvania.
in Pennsylvania, could be. You never know.
No, but I mean, and look, I'm joking. I don't want to see that happen. But, out of every crisis, there's opportunity. I look at the crisis we're in right now. There's really an opportunity to rethink and to think big and bold. And as FDR said, it's time every once in a while for a generation to be radical. I think right now is the time we need a radical generation to think about how we're going to transform our economy and our country for the future.
Yeah, and I think it starts with, like you said before, climate change is a huge issue. And I think if we restart our economy and put more hands into the people that spend the money, I don't know if everybody's noticed, but the pandemic it's really pointed out who drives our economy and who the most important people are in our economy. It's frontline workers, it's the medical profession, it's the food industry, it's all these different industries where, traditionally the pay has been relatively low, and people have been balking at a $15 an hour minimum wage. And if you do the math on the subsidized unemployment, so the federal government's kicking in an extra $600. If you do the math, that works out to between $20 and $24 an hour across the United States. That to me is where we need to start heading from a minimum wage standpoint to bring wages back in line with productivity. Because you already know this, since I think that the between 1946 and 1980, wages grew over 5%. The stock market grew about 2.5%. Since then, the stock market's grown over 5% and wages have grown less than 3%. And that's pretty much been eaten up by healthcare. We have to get back to where labor is actually compensated correctly in our economy in order to make sure that people have money to be able to invest and grow and live their lives. I'm a big fan of the American dream. My dad, he was a auto worker for a while. He worked at the old A.O. Smith plant here in Milwaukee. And he was a high school educated guy from Upper Michigan who was able to raise a family of 5 kids on one salary. And you just can't do that anymore.
No, you absolutely can't. And which is why I'm a big fan of organized labor and people's rights and ability to join and form unions so that they're able to fight for better wages, hours, conditions. Because in that same bit of time that you were talking about from the end of World War II into the mid to late 1970s, as productivity gains went up, workers' wages followed almost identically. And then right around the mid to late 70s, that deadlined. And wages have actually been stagnant and declining since then. And for me, the easy, simple answer is, there's been an all-out assault on people's ability to collectively bargain. So there's going to have to be a major overhaul of our labor laws. And, there's talk of the Employee Free Choice Act during the Obama years. Now the PRO Act, you had Bernie Sanders talking about doing away with Taft-Hartley, which I think would be a great start. Where do you see yourself on the labor front? And is there a policy that you would push forward?
Well, one, I think we need to make organizing easier within different sectors. Like Amazon's a great example. You know, just having the ability for Amazon to be able to have their workers be able to organize, I think, is going to be key. I don't know if you saw this, but the billionaires in this country, their net worth has gone up $434 billion this year. And there are now an extra 38 million people unemployed. That to me just blows my mind. It's just unconscionable that we have these uber wealthy people who's in the middle of a pandemic, their value goes up. When people are scratching and the food banks are full and there's all these people who are wondering where their next paycheck is going to come from. So it starts with organizing, but I think minimum wage is one of those areas where we have to keep pushing. It should be indexed. It should be indexed to productivity. And if you can move that index up, I think that lifts it all up. And then just the ability to help people be able to organize easier and sign up for unions. That's what should happen.
No,
but there's a whole bunch of businesses in this country that think that unions are terrible. You know, the whole, you know, the aptly named right to work laws that have been passing all across the United States, just, it drives me crazy because it has nothing to do with the right to work. It has everything to do with the race to the bottom when it comes to prices.
Absolutely. Or as Dr. King said, there are no rights and there's no work. You know, and that's really the frame there. Let me ask you the question I ask everyone, because, you know, this comes back to, you know, why do you want to put yourself in the middle of this fishbowl at this moment? I mean, you know, we've talked about some really great issues, which I think is fantastic. And I would love to see someone like you in the halls of Congress, you know, fighting for these issues. But, you know, why do you want to put yourself through this?
Yeah, it really started with the whole Trump election. You know, I joke with people about this. I spent a lot of time Facebook arguing with people in the summer of 2016. And it was just, I was appalled that people thought this was the kind of leader that we wanted to lead our country. And really after that election, I sat back and looked at myself and asked myself, all right, Tom, you can complain about this or you can do something about it. And I'm a business and executive coach by trade now. And when my clients come to me and complain about things, I say, okay, you can complain about it or do something about it. What are you going to do? And I took that own advice on myself and said, okay, let's do something about this. And I thought, if a guy like me, who's a Navy vet, I worked in banking for 15 years, working with banks through Wall Street. And then for the last 15 years, owned a business coaching company where I really learned how people work and how leadership works and how management works. I thought if a guy like me can't run in a red district, who can? And it was funny because when I told people I was running, the first thing they said was, oh, somebody's going to finally primary Jim Sensenbrenner. I said, whoa, wait, I'm a Democrat. And they looked at me just in this weird way. And
Third head kind of thing?
Right. What do you mean you're a Democrat, Tom? And I said, well, you haven't been paying attention all these years. You know, I'm for equality. I'm for justice in wages, in the justice system. And I'm for people having the ability to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, but you have to be able to give them bootstraps to start with. And I just thought, if a guy like me can't run and start to move things, who can? And so I jumped in. I had no idea what I was doing. You know, I got some smart people on my side, but we took a 70-30 district. You know, Sensenbrenner he'd run 19 times up till then. And he had run 5 times unopposed because people were like, he just can't be beat.
Right.
So 70-30. And we turned it into a 62-38. So we took a 40-point gap and turned it into a 24-point gap. And that was with very little name recognition. And I'm going to take credit for Jim Sensenbrenner retiring because I don't think he actually wanted to campaign this year. There's no way he wanted to go out and have to face me again. And, you know, but the bottom line is we have a country that is broken right now. It's broken in so many different ways. But the bottom line is we've lost our way. As a country, I don't see us having a vision of where we want to go. I don't see us having an idea of what we really want to be about. And right now, when you lack those things, you end up fighting with each other. And it's easier for a guy like Donald Trump to come into that equation because he can just be divisive and it just gets people talking. He's the master at it. But the fact of the matter is, nothing we're doing right now is proactive in regards to what we're trying to build, what we're trying to do. You know, we have huge infrastructure challenges that we're not even addressing right now. So
we need vision.
So the bottom line is, if somebody like me can't run and bring the skills of being able to do some planning, some strategic elements to the equation and actually make a difference, who can? And I just thought I got to get in the game.
Good for you. Good on you. I wish you nothing but the best. I'd love to have you come back and share some more thoughts. We need people with vision, with leadership ability, and with simple logic, common sense, rational thought, all of those things. Tom, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. And I just want to plug very briefly the No Dem Left Behind movement. I'm part of a coalition of people running in red and turning into blue districts. So if you haven't heard of us before, look us up. No Dem Left Behind.
Terrific stuff. Thank you so much, Tom. Tom Palowitz. Make sure you check out his website, tomforwi.com. We'll get links out and you can check that out. And if you got a couple extra bucks, throw him a couple of bucks. The campaign could always use it. It would be great to see someone like him take one of those red districts. Let's take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Saving work in America, one show at a time. The Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1946. That was the day that Democratic President Harry S. Truman ordered the government seizure of the nation's bituminous coal mines. 800,000 United Mine Workers of America, led by John L. Lewis, had gone out on strike. A wave of strikes washed over the United States after World War II. As part of the war effort, most unions had agreed not to conduct work actions during the war. But as industry profits soared due to wartime government contracts, workers saw little improvements in their wages or working conditions. Pent-up worker frustration boiled over after the war. Historian Jeremy Breacher had noted that the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics called the first half of 1946, quote, the most concentrated period of labor management strife in the country's history. The miners were part of that strife. They wanted improved wages, better health care benefits, and safety on the job. The strike had a ripple effect felt far beyond the coal fields. In early May, the Chicago Tribune warned, quote, the nation's worst coal strike tonight slowed the wheels of American industry toward a predictable full stoppage. Coal turned the wheels of industry, and the strike had drastically slowed mining. The government seized the mines and ordered the miners back to work. But still, the coal companies refused to meet the coal miners' demands. Unsatisfied with the resolution of the strike, the miners walked out again in November. The government fined the union $3.5 million, which it later reduced. President Truman called the work actions a rebellion against the government. But the determination of the miners forced the owners to agree to most of their demands. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So Columbia University epidemiologists have a new study out. And the new study says that had we just enacted social distancing measures a week earlier, had we done it on March 8th instead of March 15th, that 36,000 people's lives could have been saved. They say that's about 40% of the current reported fatalities from the virus. They also found that had we done it 2 weeks sooner, on March 1st, you could have saved 54,000 lives. Of the 95,000 people who have lost their lives already, you're talking more than half. And this is one of those moments where you go, this is why leadership matters. This is why you need people who, well, actually understand how to lead, actually understand how to listen to others, and maybe read. Maybe, because again, I think this, much like the situation with Bush and the August 6th presidential daily briefing, I don't think they read any of them. And evidently Trump only reads the ones that has pictures. And that's not a joke. There's no punchline there. Just sad and scary. But Had we just had 2 weeks sooner, had he taken this seriously 2 weeks sooner, 54,000 people could have had their lives spared. Just insane. Anyway, if you missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you go to get the podcast. The Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Take the program on the go, wherever you go. And as always, you can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.